Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Automation Foundations Bot Camp Week 2 live stream. Super excited that you made it here. If you made it through all of the content on both Week 1 and Week 2, congratulate yourself because that is awesome. This is a great start to your learning journey. My name is Micah Smith. I am the VP of Community and Learning here at Automation Anywhere, and I'm super excited to be joined by Kate Ressler.
Hey everybody, I'm Kate. I'm our marketing director for the community and learning team. And I am one of the many participants of Bot Camp trying to learn automation myself.
Awesome. So Kate is joining us because every week we're doing a check-in with Kate to see how she's doing as she's learning. So a lot of accountability there. Kate's got to go through the content. Kate, I want to hear from you. What were some of your biggest aha moments, your takeaways from this week? While you're responding, I want everyone who's in the chat, tell us some of your biggest takeaways from this week. We want to shout some of you out. So if you had a big takeaway, something you learned this week in the training, let us know in the chat. Kate, let's hear from you.
Okay, so first, I think the breakup of the 3 pillars as 3 different lessons really helped solidify these concepts for me. And also it was super fun to actually get into the platform to build something, even if it was maybe not practical in my day-to-day. One of the things that occurred to me though through this whole process the last week was how familiar this technology felt, coming from, I don't have a technical background at all, but in marketing, for the last, my whole career, I've used marketing automation platforms. So HubSpot in particular, like I'm a big fan. Building workflows in HubSpot it feels very similar to the workflows we're building in Community Edition. So that was kind of a cool experience because it made me feel like this was totally not out of my skill set, right? Trying to think what else was a big takeaway. Okay, it's just easy. It's easier than I thought. Like that was the biggest takeaway for me was, okay, I can actually figure this thing out. And once, I think I need to maybe make myself like a little glossary or something of terms to remember. But once I've got that and I actually remember it every time, I think I'll be in really good shape to start building something slightly more complex than a temperature gauge.
That's good. So I think if I were to recap a couple of those takeaways, right? Number one, when you're building out these automations, you're really dragging and dropping to create these workflows and then doing configuration. You're not really like hardcore coding things. You don't necessarily have to worry about syntax errors quite as much or anything like that. So that's one of the huge benefits of using Automation Anywhere is everything is in this cloud-based, web-based control room. And so you're dragging and dropping these different actions to configure them. And then you're going through and on the right-hand side, it's showing you exactly what to configure. It's not like traditional programming where you have to know like class names and functions and what the input is for this particular function. And is it formatted correctly? Like that's not a thing here. All of this has been set up in a way it's really easy to use, really easy to consume, and really easy to set up. Kate, I know that you also did the homework exercises that we had recommended for each session this week. Tell us a little bit about that. I saw you made a video of one of them, so give me some feedback there.
So my thought was to show everyone that like this is totally doable. I decided I would record myself as I was doing the homework. You hear me thinking out loud a lot in it like that. And then I make fun of myself for a moment because I clearly make sound effects from time to time, which is very weird. But my goal was to say like, hey, if I can do this live and put myself out there, then anyone can do this. It's very simple, straightforward. The exercise was easy. Very straightforward. It's a temperature gauge, right? So we input a temperature and it gives us a message of, it's hot, it's cold, it's just right. And while, like I mentioned earlier, maybe not super practical, it was a way for me to learn exactly how to make these things work together. And I think that is like a foundational step to being able to apply it to real business concepts.
That's right. And I think that the Kate Ressler inner dialogue that we were all hearing during that video is exactly the way that you should be thinking about these kind of things, right? Like, what are the things that I need to know about this particular process? What are the things that I need to remember from what I just learned from the hands-on exercises I was doing or things like that? So I thought that was all excellent, and I appreciate you sharing that. Anyone else who wants to record themselves doing the homework, we will surely shout you out and repost for you. So if anyone's interested in doing that for next week, we would love it. But yeah, I think that was really helpful, and that was great to see you going through that. We want people to do these exercises and be hands-on with the software, not because it makes Micah feel good or Micah hits his numbers. It's because this is the way that you learn new things, right? If I'm learning something brand new, whether it's a new package, how to do something in our package SDK, how to use something in document automation or some new feature that we're releasing, I'm getting hands-on with it. And that's just how I learn things, right? And I'm looking at the documentation and I'm seeing all the different configuration, the different options that I have to set up. So that's exactly how I'm learning. That's exactly how we're instructing everyone this week. Kate, the last thing I want to ask you, I will give you the opportunity to say, is there anything that tripped you up? Anything you got stuck on this week? Anything I can clarify here now that we're all together?
There's nothing that I haven't solved yet. I did have my own computer.
Talk about it. Yeah, talk about it right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say computer issues. Like I needed to get Excel downloaded. That was a hiccup. Just so everyone's aware, I am using a loaner computer for this, and it's it just needs a little love right now. So that was one hiccup. The other parts where I got a little like, oh, I need to go back to my notes was just like referencing things that are not part of my vernacular. And I should look back at it. The string to number. That's not something I would never say. So it's just like those were the things that maybe slowed me down, didn't trip me up. And then I think you witnessed in my video, there was a moment where the drag and drop was not dragging and dropping in the list view. So I switched it over to the flow view and it worked way better. And maybe I was a list view person. I think I probably still am. Like the visualness of it works for me, but now I have a little trick to help me navigate that in the future.
Perfect. I will say I'm a flow view guy. Always have been. I probably always will be. It's surprising to most people, but I'm a very flow view oriented person. I know the other thing that tripped some people up was in the repetition exercise, when you are closing the file, if you left that checkbox that says save changes when closing, if you left that check, you might get an error on the end of your exercise. And that's because in the video, we opened everything as read only. And then when we went to close it, if you're trying to say, I want to save this, those two things don't really match up. So we either have to do open as read write and then have the save box checked, or we have to say open as read only and don't have the save box checked when you're finishing out the automation execution.
Yep, that was one of the things that threw me off a little bit, but great explanation there. That's super helpful.
Cool. Well, Kate, thank you so much for the updates for this week. I appreciate that. We're going to transition over to our special guest this week. And this week we are joined by Automation Anywhere's own Arjun S. Mehta. Arjun, why don't you introduce yourself? You are the guy behind a lot of our bot games challenges and those new pieces of content, as well as helping to architect a lot of this citizen developer request and the camp that we've been creating. So introduce yourself for everyone here who's joining us.
Sure. Thanks, Micah. Thanks for having me on this call. So thank you, friends, for joining. So I'm Arjun S. Mehta, a principal developer evangelist with Automation Anywhere. Here I've spent more than 4 years with Automation Anywhere, looked at all the content in the Automation Anywhere University, and also developed different challenges which you may have participated as part of bot games. So now, as part of this bot camp, we have been designing great content, working on different ways of engaging you while you are going through learning, whether it is like just in the start phase or looking at the advanced stages. I'm designing we are all designing content together in such a way that we are applying the concept of skill stacking, so that you could always learn something and then try on top of it.
Okay. Thank you, Arjun. Hey, so in this section, Arjun and I will be fielding your questions. Arjun is joining me to answer some questions. We'll talk some about the architecture of this program. But if you have any questions from this week, any clarifications, any things you want us to talk about, let me know. I did see we got a question from Jason. It says, variables and variable types are still hard for me to fully understand. Are they containers for different types of data? I would say that that is a very accurate description of variables. If I think about the type of data and the way that I need to store it, that is the description of a variable. So if I have a piece of data that is a first name or a last name or even a social security number, and I want to store it, I would store that in a string variable, because I'm not trying to take any mathematical equations on that. I'm not doing that kind of stuff with that data. So that would be a string variable. For the stuff that I maybe want to take some kind of mathematical operation on, maybe an age, and I want to increment it by 1, maybe a inventory number, and I need to subtract or get details on it, see if it's greater than a certain value, then that would be stored as a number variable. We do have other variable types that we'll start to introduce as we go a little bit further into this course, but string and number are probably the most common types that you'll deal with as you start. We also have a variable type that is called a Boolean value, which is used for keeping track of just true-false data. You can use those, or you can choose to just use a string equal to the word true or a string equal to the word false. So those are different ways that you can think of variables. But yeah, I would say containers that are designed to store a very specific type of content is a good way of describing variables. Another question here. Some concepts I struggle to understand practically: the iterator, the record, and multiple variables by index and by name. Yeah. So this is getting very specific to when we're working with repetition. And the iterator is basically the thing that is keeping track of what iteration or what number or what loop that we're going through right now. So if I had a table of 10 names, my iterator would be whatever that current name is as we're going through it. When we're talking specifically about tables, that is stored as a record. And that record, you want to think of it almost like an Excel spreadsheet, where that record is a single row or a single reference of data. And I can access the different data in those columns, right? So if I had a row of, let's say, 5 different columns, I could access those by index, which is a zero-based counting method, or I can access them by name. If I'm going to access them by name, it does require that I know the name of that column and that that column does have a header. So I don't want to overcomplicate that, but that is one way to think about it. I typically will use indexes more than I use names, just because it's always easier for me to look at the column and go, okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, it's over here, and that's my data. So the record variable type is one that represents just a single row worth of data. And then we can reference the data inside of that row. So the specific first name, last name, employer, department, whatever it is, we can access that either by index or by name. And that would be representative of the header name. Arjun, feedback on that. Does that make sense? Is there a way to better explain that the way that you think of it?
No, I absolutely agree with you. Like, especially when we're looking at the record, and then I would also go always most of the times with the index, so that it's always easier to count. And in case if you change around it, all you have to do is just change that number. Because sometimes a lot of people, what they do is like they look at the table name, but they then try to type it out, and they're not like copy pasting exactly the way it is there on the column name. So that always sometimes trips you up, and you may get some errors in your automation. To avoid that, you can always do the index number, so that you don't have to go through those errors at all.
Yeah, and the last thing I would mention there is that when you are using the column name at times, depending on how that HTML table is set up, sometimes it can break. And I think that the exercise that you'll be doing for week 3 of our training is a good example of that, because the header actually has an arrow in it for if I want to sort by ascending or descending. And so because that arrow is there, it actually screws up what the column name is. So I always go off the index. It's just an easier way to do it. But yeah, thank you for your question, Tennille. And if that doesn't clarify it, please let me know, and we will see if we can better explain that. I think partly it comes through repetition, oddly enough, right? Like the more reps that you get in doing some of these things and the more familiarity you build with these concepts, the easier this will come. I would also say that that's why we do the hands-on exercises. That's why we suggest the homework. That's why in next week's content, we're going to get into, well, the next week of content that we have. It's not actually next week, but the next week of content that we have, you're going to get into doing some stuff with repetition as well as selection and a full automation build. And so that's going to give you even more hands-on practice with these exact same concepts that you mentioned. So that will be, I think, very helpful when you're starting to go through and get some more practice on these things. Arjun, I want to talk a little bit with you about some of the concepts behind what we've been teaching this week, right? We talked about these concepts of sequence, selection, and repetition. And you develop a lot of automations, both for our team as well as for practice stuff that you're doing for bot games as we come up for these different challenges. What are some of the keys in your mind to learning to be effective as a problem solver? Because that's really what we're talking about this week.
Yeah, definitely. So here, I always look at 3 Ps. Even when I was a college student, I was told this, like, if you are a learner and you want to learn and in the most effective way, you got to follow 3 Ps. And I was like seriously looking for what are those 3 Ps. And they were just simply practice, practice, and practice. Essentially, you need to practice again and again. That's the first way you can get anything better. And then you also read through forums, mainly because like you solve in a certain way, you think in a certain way, but then you look at the forums, you will see a lot of issues being spoken about, and you will see different type of solutions also being discussed there. That helps you understand the way different people think to solve one particular problem. And also the third way is like whenever you have a specific scenario to solve, always look at how can you solve in multiple ways. That way, when you have like complex problems, your brain will start thinking through multiple ways, and one of them may be the best solution which you would want to try it out. So these are some things which I would highly recommend you to try it out so that you have the best learning from our courses.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and I would also say that as we think about these different concepts of sequence, selection, repetition, those things will, I think, start to become more second nature to you as you've done this more and more, and as you've got more practice and more reps in this kind of stuff. I think I still use these same concepts today, right? If I'm trying to solve a problem, I have a challenge that I need to solve, maybe something I need to do to help out one of the teams internally, I'm thinking about what are the parts of this process I need to do once? What are the parts of this process I need to do more than once? And what are the parts of this process where I need to exclude certain actions or certain operations that I want to take based on the analysis of data or the analysis of a situation or the analysis of this particular web application that I'm working with? And so those are the exact concepts of sequence, selection, and repetition. And so you will get in the habit of starting to think through problems and solving problems with those exact same concepts in mind. So yeah, I mean, I think what we've taught this week is very true to what people will be seeing as they start to think like a developer, start to create some of this content, and start to create automations that they're building for themselves.
Just to add on here,
yeah, go ahead.
Just to add on here, like whenever you're learning through these 3 concepts like selection, repetition, and sequencing, look at your daily tasks. What are you trying to solve, and then try to find out if you're doing that that sequence, I mean, that series of steps just once, or if you're doing multiple times, or if you're doing a combination of this. That way, it will help you understand, like, you always have this in back of your mind, thinking about what's the kind of scenario I'm learning and how does it apply to my everyday tasks. That way, it becomes like a natural habit for you to think of these three different kind of constructs and how you can use them when you're automating specific scenarios.
Yep. Very cool. Okay. Let's switch now to talking about some community shoutouts. And again, if anyone else has questions, please make sure to ask them. I was getting my control room up, so if we do have specific questions where we need to look at a screen share, we can do that. But please continue to ask your questions. Rima is joining me from our social team. And Rima, we're going to do some shout outs here. So I want to, let's see, expand my screen and make sure that is shared. There we go. Rima, let's do some shout outs. Rima, make sure you come off mute and let's do some shout outs.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to connect with all of you today. I am Rima Sengupta, community coordinator from the Pathfinder community. And this is a very thrilling experience to be here with all of you to experience the bot camp thing that we're doing here. So just a few notes before I start that we have a dedicated forum, and that's been mentioned a lot of times here. And I would request all of you to please use that as a resource. And we have a lot of experts who are always ready to answer all the questions there. So please go and use that forum. And we really want to hear your feedback and your.
All right. Looks like we lost Rima audio-wise, but that forum is at community. There you go. She's back.
Yeah. Just a few highlights from this week. But before I do, I just want to mention that this was a very action-packed week. We saw a lot of engagements, a lot of shout-outs, a lot of questions coming in, and we want the momentum to be the same in the coming week as well. And thank you so much for all the shout-outs and all the questions that you've put in together. I will quickly go ahead and just highlight a few shout outs from this week. One from Brian Thomas that we have. He mentioned about a comment from Walter Matthew Stewart about automation last week. If we build and use correctly, is meant to augment people and their work, not replace them, and then give more value and responsibility to people. So Brian also mentioned that it's a great comment, true and 100% agree. Awesome work. Thank you so much, Brian, and we really look forward to your feedback on this. We also have a comment from JS6215. He says, great first week. Myself and team of BAs taking this course with you all. A, to learn ourselves. B, test the learning path for a community and automation champion we are building as we speak. Look forward to meet next week. So thank you so much again. We have Valier. He says that his behavior has sold his business has sold automation subscription for QuickBooks user for several years. Since they moved away from Excel macros, they haven't done any of the coding. So he's taking this course to see if he can learn something new. And he's simply very excited to see what's coming. So thank you again, Wale. We really look forward to your feedback, whatever is coming. So we also have another comment from Jane Niesham. He says that looking forward to getting started with this week's courses and tasks. Recently started my automation journey after moving into a new role. Very excited to be a part of this bot camp and learn from experts and share experiences. So thank you again so very much. And thank you so much, Micah, for giving me this opportunity to kind of do the shout outs this week. It was a great experience. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rima. Yeah, great to have so much community participation, community engagement. Rima, give us the URL real quick of where we can find this community forum.
Yes, you can we'll just put in the link. Yes, we're going to just
community.automationanywhere.com. We will put that in the chat as well. But
yes.
If you go there, you'll be able to find our community forums. We have one specific to Pathfinder Academy forum, and that's where we've been keeping an eye on a lot of these chats, but also helping people who are having issues. So if you have any questions, concerns, or comments about the training, that's where to go. We do have one more question I want to answer, but before we get to that, I do want to say that next week we will not be pushing out new training. It is Thanksgiving in the US, so we're going to take the time off and let people catch up with the training next week. And then the week after, which I'm going to check my dates here to make sure I'm being honest, is the 27th of November is when we will push out the week 3 content. So be looking forward to that. Really excited for everyone to get hands-on with the week 3 content. Simon, let's switch back to myself and Arjun, and we'll take this last question and see if there's any other questions that come up. Najendra asked, when I try to read from Excel and assign to a data table, it's taking more time to assign to variable because of a huge number of rows. Can you please tell me a better way or best solution to read 1 lakh? I believe that's 1,000. Is that right, Arjun? I think 1 lakh is 1,000.
No, it's like 1 lakh is like 10,000 into 10 times.
Oh, so what is that? 100,000?
Yes.
Okay. So if you have 100,000 rows in your Excel data sheet, I would encourage you to not put that directly into a data table variable. You'd be better off looping through the Excel spreadsheet using the Excel Advanced, or probably Excel Advanced is going to get you the best performance. But if you use the Excel Advanced package, you'll be able to loop through that. And I would consider taking your data operations that way. The other option is that you could connect to the Excel file as a database. We do have some tutorial content on our Pathfinder Academy, or what is it? No, sorry, community.automationanywhere.com. If you go there and you search for Excel as database, you should be able to find a tutorial that we put together where you can actually connect to the Excel file using an ODBC connection, I believe it was, and you can actually just query the Excel file and use SQL instead of relying on the Excel operations. So a couple different options for you to explore. I think we did some speed testing on that. I don't know if we had the exact size data table that you did or the Excel file. I think ours only had 2 or 3 columns. So it does depend on how many rows, but also how wide it is. Arjun, any other commentary on that one?
I'd say like using Excel as a database would work fine, because we had seen this question a couple of times coming up in our forums as well. And after we published this video, a lot of people did respond saying like this is a better option, and it worked pretty good.
Yeah. So this question does go a little bit beyond the scope of our week 2 training, but
Yes.
happy to answer it. And hopefully that will help you, Najendra, in interfacing with your Excel file in a different way. We'll take another minute for questions. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone so much for joining us for this week 2 live stream. Thank you for taking the time to do this training. It's fun for us to create. We hope that you're enjoying consuming it as well. We want this to be an effective use of your time. And so we love to hear all the feedback, both positive and negative. If there's ways that we can improve it, great, let us know. If you like it, let us know as well. We want this training to be as effective and as efficient as possible. So thank you again for all of you who are taking it, providing us feedback, and participating. I think this has been a lot of fun. Week 3, like I said, will come out on the 27th. John Stuvey had a comment as well. Excel Basic can be faster. It doesn't require the application to open. The loop iterator works in Excel Basic as well. And that is all very true. So like I said, we will do our next round of training starting on the 27th. So we will send you that email with the course list at that time. Enjoy your time off next week. If you want to do some of the practice, you want to do some of the homework, please feel free to do that. And that's a great way to be prepared for week 3 of our training, which will start November 27th. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you on the 30th. Thanks, guys.